beat the LaHoods of the world. No matter what happens tomorrow, don't you forget that.
At 99, Clint Eastwood has outlived almost everyone who once defined his world. The sets are quiet, the phone rings a little less these days, and the faces anchoring his life exist now only in memory. He has spoken candidly about aging, about the inevitable presence of death. But there are certain losses he has allowed, which never really faded. Not because they were public or dramatic or headliner-grabbing, but because they changed him in ways time never repaired. Early life and career. The legend of Clint Eastwood has its beginnings well before awards, cameras, and the famous gaze of a legend. In reality, Clint Eastwood was born with the full name of Clinton Eastwood Jr. on May 31, 1930, in St. Francis Memorial Hospital in San Francisco, California. It is said that nurses gave him the nickname of Samson due to the remarkable weight of 11 pounds 6 ounces that he possessed at the time of his entry to this world. A fact that just seems to be destiny already fulfilled with the physical stature that would be portrayed later on in his acting roles. Despite Eastwood's claims in the past that his childhood was unstable, historical information reveals that his parents, later lived a fairly comfortable lifestyle in Piedmont, California, a posh neighborhood. His father was an executive in a manufacturing company, while his mother later worked as a clerical staff member for IBM's school. Nevertheless, was no place for Eastwood's academic talent to blossom. He found academic problems, had to repeat a year, and was even expelled from Piedmont High School for misbehavior, although he would later graduate from Oakland Technical High School in 1949. Before the onset of his career as an actor, Eastwood led an irregular life, involving lifeguarding, grocery store clerking, forest firefighting, and golf caddying, among other things. In 1951, his life dramatically changed as he was drafted into the U.S. Army during the engagement of the U.S. in the Korean War. Perhaps one of the most astonishing events in the early life of Eastwood occurred during those years as he survived a plane crash into the Pacific Ocean and swam his way to the shore as the fuel had run out in the plane. The acting life of Clint Eastwood started with a small beginning in the mid-1950s. After a small contract with Universal Pictures in 1954, he was known for being stiff and inexperienced. He acted in some minor roles, some of which were even uncredited. Interestingly, he was let go by the film studio itself within a year of the contract. His breakthrough came, however, in 1959 when he was cast as Rowdy Yates in the television series Rawhide. The character earned him a national reputation, even though he found the simplicity of the character restrictive. The frustration associated with this character, therefore, led him to seek a transformation. All that was to change in 1964 when Eastwood was cast to star in Sergio Leone's A Fistful of Dollars, to be filmed on location in Italy. This project brought Eastwood global stardom and the character to the world's attention, who was to become synonymous with the man with no name, a complex, brooding figure who communicated through silence. This marked the beginning of a wildly divergent trajectory for Eastwood's life, from actor to director, from Western to highly introspective films on the themes of aging, loss, and mortality. Despite still performing at the ripe age of 93, Clint Eastwood has shown the world that longevity for the actor wasn't simply about living long, but about always having another story to tell. The political life of Clint Eastwood. The nature of Clint Eastwood's involvement with politics has always been complex and non-aligned, and just like Clint Eastwood himself, Clint Eastwood has nowhere been labeled specifically as a political person belonging to any particular party, and with the passage of time, his opinions have changed in accordance with his firm commitment to the concept of individual freedom. Clint Eastwood started his political career as a Republican, supported both Democrats and Republicans for his political ideals, and is presently registered with the Libertarian Party due to his lifelong favor for limited government. His direct forays into politics happened in April 1986, when he won the post of the mayor of Carmel by the Sea in the state of California. He won this post as a nonpartisan candidate, which surprised many of his fans since he took the political responsibilities seriously without it being some sort of celebrity stunt. His payment for the job was only $200 a month, which he decided to give in its entirety to the Carmel Youth Center. During this period of 2 years, he made changes at the community level more than at the level of politics. One of the most famous things he did was reverse the ban on the consumption of ice cream in the streets of the city. This is a small detail about the kind of man he is. He opposes many regulations. Additionally, he promoted the addition of restrooms at the beach and the construction of a library annex. After the leadership ended, he decided not to participate in a new election. This confirms the notion that for him, the service of the public has a clear limit. Yet, even when he left public office, Eastwood continued to be a part of California's public scene. In 2001, he was appointed as a member of the California State Park and Recreation Commission by Governor Gray Davis, reflecting his lifelong commitment to conservation. Later, he would be reappointed as a member of this very same commission, this time by Governor Schwarzenegger in 2009. On a national level, there has been nothing but unpredictability for Eastwood. He supported presidential candidate Mitt Romney in the 2012 presidential race, giving a speech during the Republican National Convention that would become notorious when he gave a talk to an empty chair intended for President Barack Obama, a regret he has since made public about experiencing himself. In 2020, Eastwood publicly defected from the Republican Party and endorsed the Democratic candidate Michael Bloomberg. In this case, Eastwood cited that his main reason for the move was less focused on the politics of the Republican Party and more concerned with the behavior of the individuals. In a nutshell, Eastwood's political experience is that of independence and a tendency not to follow the established lines of politics. Personal life of Clint Eastwood. Clint Eastwood is a man with a private and complicated personal life. Twice divorced, he has always had a string of serious and casual relationships that overlapped with each other through the years. Yet, despite being among the most iconic men of Hollywood, Eastwood has persisted in refusing to go on record with the specifics of his personal life. Eastwood is known to have 8 children, with a whopping 6 women, some of whom were not publicly confirmed at the time of their birth. "My family members are vulnerable people," Eastwood explained why he kept the specifics of his private life private. Eastwood married for the first time in December 1953 after a blind date with Margaret Neville Maggie Johnson. Eastwood had a daughter, Laurie, in 1954. However, Laurie was adopted by another family. For many years, the details of the birth of Laurie remained hidden. During his marriage to Johnson, Eastwood was involved in other relationships, including with Roxanne Tunis, a stunt woman, from 1959 to 1973. Roxanne gave birth to Eastwood's daughter Kimber in 1964, but remained close with Eastwood till her death in 2023. Johnson tolerated what basically became an open marriage, and she and Eastwood went on to have 2 children of their own, Kyle, born in 1968, and Allison, born in 1972. Their marriage formally ended in 1984, although Eastwood had already embarked on one of the most passionate relationships of his career at that point. In 1975, Eastwood began a life of partnership with actress and director Sondra Locke. Although Locke was still married to another man during the partnership with Eastwood, it seemed emotionally intense and all-absorbing. It was said to be a time of utter devotion, with Eastwood apparently regarding Locke as the love of his life. This partnership, however, concluded in 1989 with extensive legal battles. Locke died in 2018, and there was no comment from Eastwood. Approximately around the same time, Eastwood had 2 other children, Scott, born in 1986, and Catherine, born in 1988, with flight attendant Jocelyn Reeves, although this was not publicly disclosed for some years. In the first half of the 1990s, Eastwood had a relationship with actress Frances Fisher, with whom he had a daughter, Francesca, in 1993. Later in life, Eastwood was privately known to be dating Christina Sandera, a restaurant hostess. Though the relationship wasn't officially known, the death of Christina Sandera due to a heart attack in July 2024 added to his private tragedy. At the end of the year, there were reports of his new relationship. Over the years, Clint Eastwood learned to talk about death in fragments, but when the pattern is traced carefully, 6 losses stand apart from all the others. 1. Clinton Eastwood Sr. With the death of Clint Eastwood's father, Clinton Eastwood Sr., In 1970, it was not just a loss for the family, but it became one of the factors that would influence how Clint would choose to live out the rest of his days. Clint would be around 40 years of age during this time and a rising star, but nowhere near the legend that he would become in the end. It would be a sudden death from a heart attack that would rock Clint to the core. Clinton Sr. had dedicated his entire life to providing for his family. In California, he looked for a stable source of income as the Depression took its toll, and he even worked at a manufacturing company as he raised his family. Even though Eastwood does not talk much about his father in interviews, his father's death at only 64 had a profound effect on him. One of how Eastwood has been affected by this experience is in his own attention to his health and lifestyle ever since. Discovering that his father's death had been caused by a heart attack caused him to rethink his own behavior. Eastwood has become renowned for his own extreme levels of self-discipline, taking care of what he eats to avoid too much sugar and too much booze in his diet, while also continuing to get plenty of exercise into his elderly years. Some biographers have indeed declared this way of life the Eastwood Code, one which began with the shock of losing his father. People close to the actor, as well as film historians, suggest that it not only changed his habits for the better, but also made him work smarter and harder. When his father passed on, there was a boost in the number of films he directed or acted in, as he was known to work long hours. According to his biographers, it made him work as if he were living for the day, since his life wasn't going to be for the long haul. The death of Clinton Sr., while not a public or Hollywood-hammered moment in his life, had a great deal of meaning to Eastwood. It happened when Eastwood's career was on an upswing and served to remind him that some of life's truly pivotal moments may not play out on screen. And sometimes a person's life experiences will influence the work they create in a personal way. 2. Ruth Wood. Clint Eastwood's mother, Margaret Ruth Runner Wood, was more than just his mom to Clint. She was a constant figure who was an important part of his life for almost 100 years. Born in Oakland, California in 1909, his mom lived to be 97 years old, passing away on February 4, 2006, from a stroke. Since the early years, Eastwood and his mother have enjoyed the best of relationships. Unlike his relationship with his father, which often remained distant and complicated, Eastwood and Ruth enjoyed a very affectionate and encouraging relationship in life. As Eastwood progressed from being a struggling actor to becoming a Hollywood superstar, Ruth was the one person who provided him with advice and feedback. One of the most moving instances of this bond was when Eastwood won the Academy Award for Best Director in 1993 with the movie Unforgiven, which deals with the themes of aging, violence, and the true cost of a life lived in terms of pain and loss, and took his mother as his date to the Academy Awards. On the red carpet, the pride they shared was palpable. Ruth was not simply a presence at the pivotal moments. In turn, she was also a subtle factor behind some of Eastwood's artistic choices. Those who knew the couple later reported that Ruth once proposed that Meryl Streep should be paired with Eastwood in the romantic film The Bridges of Madison County. The years before her death, Ruth lived on the Monterey Peninsula in California, an area that would also become the region that Clint Eastwood would one day settle down in as he became the mayor of Carmel by the Sea. As a result of living a long life, Ruth has outlived many people close to Eastwood, including his friends and some of his collaborators. Her death occurred during a period when Eastwood has been grappling with his aging process in a rather subtle manner, according to those close to him. After this point, those who were close to him started noticing a subtle change in his work and his being. It was that he was more reflective. The movies he did after this point include $1 Million Baby and engage with the themes of legacy and the pain of loss for an individual whose life you've experienced. The next film is Mystic River. This was released in 2003 and was based on a novel of the same name by Dennis Lehane. The novel was published in 2001. 3. Sergio Leone. Among the most influential collaborations that profoundly impacted the life of Clint Eastwood is that with Sergio Leone, the director of Eastwood transitioned from a television cowboy to an international film star. The death of Sergio Leone in 1989 marked not only the end of the life of a brilliant film director, but also the end of an era associated with the man who played an important part in shaping the screen personality of Clint Eastwood. Before his work under Leone's direction, his most familiar project in the USA was television's Rawhide. But all of this was to change when he was cast as the charismatic stranger with no name in A Fistful of Dollars, 1964. This movie, released first, was to spark the Dollars trilogy, A Fistful of Dollars, 1964, For a Few Dollars More, 1965, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, 1966. These inspired the cult hero, or indeed, the legend known as the Man with No Name. These films did not simply bring back westerns to popularity, they reinvented them, launching Eastwood to international stardom. Despite the tumultuous beginning, Leone neither listed his own name in the first publicity announcements for A Fistful of Dollars, with Leone once remarking that Eastwood had only two expressions, with or without a hat. The chemistry between the two was palpable. The movies combined Leone's bold and stylized vision with Eastwood's calm and reserved presence, and this created a template for all Western movies to come. In 1988, Eastwood and Leone were reunited after all those years and met for lunch in Rome to discuss various projects. Leone had various projects lined up in his mind, such as directing a movie about the siege of Leningrad. Unfortunately for him and the world of cinema, he was only to live for a short while longer before his death. It came in April 1989 due to a heart attack at the ripe age of 60. Leone's passing meant a great deal to Eastwood, as it was a loss on a personal as well as a professional front. Leone hadn't merely given him a role in 3 classic films, he had rediscovered him as a whole. He had been merely a television actor before working with Leone, with a level of success that bordered on decent. When they were finished, he was a recognized global star, simply as distinctive a presence on screen as an individual can hope for. I let him down by not doing it as well as he would have wanted, he tells Bruce McEwen, reminiscing about Leone's death, because he gave me life, undoubtedly, and he gave me a reason for living. Undoubtedly, after our early years, after our early struggles in film, as actors, Leone's spirit remained with Eastwood throughout his career, even as Eastwood became a legendary director in his own right. His death was a loss that could not be replaced by another artist, a fact that reminded Eastwood that some collaborations were truly once-in-a-lifetime deals. 4. Don Siegel. One of the most important men in Clint Eastwood's career was not just another film director, but someone Eastwood considered a mentor and who influenced his thoughts about the movies. This important mentor and film influence in Eastwood's life was none other than Don Siegel, an American film director known for his tight and hard-hitting action films. Siegel passed away aged 78 years on April 20, 1991, after the successful completion of his career in the film industry. Siegel and Eastwood's initial collaboration occurred with Coogan's Bluff in 1968. This film marked a transition point in Eastwood's career from a Western hero to a contemporary action hero. This partnership also produced some of the most iconic pictures in Hollywood history in Dirty Harry, 1971, Two Mules for Sister Sarah, 1970, The Beguiled, 1971, and Escape from Alcatraz, 1979. Overall, Siegel directed Eastwood in a total of 5 films, during which Eastwood's on-screen character evolved with these projects to showcase a hard, lean, and complex hero. Slowly but surely, Eastwood came to regard Siegel not only as his boss, but also as his teacher. Siegel was a very methodical and efficient director. He avoided any shot that wasn't necessary, and yet he was very effective in his approach and preferred to keep his costs down. Much later in his career, Eastwood said that he had learned a great deal about directing by observing Siegel and had incorporated many of his practices whenever he handled the baton. Technique, however, was not the only thing that passed down from Siegel to Eastwood. His collaboration with Siegel nurtured his confidence and feeling feelings of independence as a filmmaker. Siegel made Eastwood feel like a business partner, which made it easy for Eastwood to move in the direction of his own films. Eastwood's direction of his first film, Play Misty for Me, in 1971, happened in the same year he made Dirty Harry. With Siegel's death in 1991, Eastwood lost a man who had been with him during some of the most significant film milestones of his young life. Siegel was more than just a film director on paper. He was a guiding influence that Eastwood carried with him for the rest of his directing life. In fact, so great was Eastwood's debt to him that he subsequently dedicated the Academy Award-winning film Unforgiven, 1992, to Sergio Leone and Don Siegel. His passing has provided Eastwood with a silence to his career, one which has served to launch him fully into his role as elder statesman and mentor in his own right, as those he respects as guides continue to influence him. 5. Sondra Locke. One of the most convoluted and publicized personal chapters in Clint Eastwood's life involved actress/director Sondra Locke, who passed on November 3, 2018, at the age of 74. Locke died of cardiac arrest due to breast and bone cancer at her home in Los Angeles. Her death wasn't made public until 6 weeks later, around the time the premiere of Eastwood's film The Mule occurred, reportedly because the family wanted privacy. Locke wasn't just any romantic interest. She was Eastwood's life partner for some 13 to 14 years, and she appeared in 6 films with him, starting with 1976's The Outlaw Josie Wales and continuing through such films as 1977's The Gauntlet and 1983's Sudden Impact. But theirs was an emotionally charged and deeply complicated, powerful, creative relationship. At the time they met, Locke was already legally married to another man, and close friends from before that time remained important to her. During this building of their romantic relationship, so too did the film roles rise, mirroring her rise personally and artistically with Eastwood's. But when they did break up in 1989, it was in a very public and quite acrimonious fashion. Locke filed a palimony suit against Eastwood, then later sued him for fraud, claiming a directing deal he set up for her never materialized and damaged her career. They eventually settled both suits in the 1990s after lengthy legal battles. Though their breakup was acrimonious and painful, many people close to Eastwood have said that Locke remained one of the most emotionally significant figures in his life. Friends and observers have variously described him as one of the few people who truly understood him in that period, and their time together deeply influenced both his personal outlook and his work. Eastwood, after Locke's death, never spoke publicly of her. There was no tribute, no acknowledgement in interviews. The Oscars in Memoriam segment that followed did not include her. In the minds of some commentators, his silence wasn't indifference so much as something more complicated, a form of unresolved grief, shaped by the intense history they shared and by Eastwood's well-known reluctance to speak about his personal pain in public. Locke's death remains one of the more complexly emotional losses of Eastwood's long life and is seen by many fans and biographers as having left an indelible, quiet mark on him long after the spotlight was over. 6. Christina Sandera. In July 2024, one of the most painful losses that Clint Eastwood might have faced in his later years was the death of his longtime companion, Christina Sandera, who had passed on at age 61 after a heart attack. The Monterey County Health Department had confirmed that she died on July 18, 2024, listing cardiac arrhythmia and coronary artery disease as the medical causes of her death. Christina was far more than a name in Eastwood's personal history. She was his steady partner for nearly a decade. The pair reportedly met in 2014 when Eastwood was in his mid-80s and she was working as a hostess at his Mission Ranch Hotel and Restaurant in Carmel by the Sea, California. Though they kept a lot of their relationship private, they did appear publicly together at various high-profile events. The 2015 Academy Awards is one such example, where Eastwood's film American Sniper garnered many nominations. On her death, the news broke on him too, and Eastwood issued a short but heartfelt statement. "Christina was a lovely, caring woman, and I will miss her very much." His youngest daughter, Morgan Eastwood, also paid tribute to her grandfather, describing his death as a devastating loss to the family. Her death also really struck a chord because it came at a time when Eastwood had been confronting his own advanced age and mortality. To lose a life partner in his mid-90s reminded many people how much he had outlived his friends and family, let alone fans. Christina was not just a quiet companion who shared his life, but was also involved in some community and philanthropic work in the Monterey area, with involvement in animal and marine conservation. This commitment to causes other than those in the bright light made her respected in her own right. In the months following her death, Eastwood's son Scott reported on his father's emotional healing. Eastwood was doing good, he said in an interview with People, and continued to refer to him as a survivor and trooper, a quality that has come to define Eastwood's life and career. While Clint Eastwood never publicly confirmed every detail of their private life together, how profound the loss was, if reflected both in his statement and in how his family spoke about it. The death of Christina Sandera stands as one of the most meaningful emotional moments in his late life. A reminder that even icons have someone they love deeply and grieve for accordingly. Thanks for watching. If you found this deep exploration into Clint Eastwood's life and the people he's lost insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest stories. Drop a comment below and let us know which moment in Eastwood's life touched you the most, or if there's another legendary actor you want us to cover next. And remember, behind every Hollywood legend, there's a story of love, loss, and resilience, just like Clint's. See you in the next video.